Okay, so while we're working with the technology, I've been working with intelligent transport systems with digital technologies in transport for around 28 years now. And what that has meant has changed considerably from when we started out. I feel that we're now entering into one of the most exciting phases that we've got. Exciting not necessarily because we are due for some dramatic changes, because I'm not sure that we are due for dramatic change, but exciting because the possibilities are very much open to us, and there are many ways forward, and we have choices about how we go forward in order to make transport sustainable for the future. Thank you. So today I'm going to introduce to you 6 mega trends that I believe are important to the forward agenda. There are actually 2 more that I didn't include on this slide because I wasn't quite sure whether these were in scope or not. One of which is dematerialisation, which I think is very important for us to be looking at. Dematerialisation includes 3D printing, but it also includes all those technologies which basically give people access to goods and services without travel. And that's important for us to bear in mind, because what we are not about, and I don't believe, is in providing more and more travel for the sake of it. It's actually getting people access to the services and goods they need. The second mega trend that I didn't include is actually something to do with the importance of visual intrusion. And I predict that this will actually rise very much on the agenda. As we sort out the technologies, as we sort out the solutions, we will start to look at the amount of technology that's out there, this issue of visual intrusion, and making cities livable, making the ICT and the digital technologies far less intrusive. So those are 2 that are off record, as it were. So the 6 that I'm going to talk about, first of all, political priorities, which is something to do with the priority in terms of economy, the environment and efficiency, this cycle that we seem to go through in terms of political priorities. Secondly, this issue of opening data, sharing, not just sharing data, but sharing modes and so on. Democratisation, if that's the right word. It's about participative governance and the need for packaging that will go with ICT solutions. The idea of user-led transport, which already we're seeing this emerging and becoming a priority. Socio-demographics, and in particular ageing, which is something we heard about this morning, but what will that mean for the future of transport? And finally, some of the challenges of peak oil, and the idea that actually energy accounting and the greening of ICT within transport, I think, will become a real issue for us. This first slide here addresses the question of political priority, and the intention isn't that you should attempt to read this, but I think it will be going on the website later. But this is founded on the idea that actually, unless there is political will to introduce technology solutions, and unless there is political will to open up the solutions and the way forward, then these actually, no matter how good the technologies are, no matter how acceptable to ordinary citizens and how much they provide a solution for us, if the political will isn't there, they will not come forward. So to try and understand this is actually the results of a survey we did around a year and a half ago, which involved around, we got around 70 responses. We did this electronically, and we were asking high-level stakeholders who were already aware of digital technologies and intelligent transport systems, where do these technologies lie within your political agenda? What are your priorities? How would you use them in terms of your priorities? And so there are 2 sets of data there. The one totally in black was the current situation around a year or so ago. And the one on the right-hand side with the coloured bars, that shows how people were seeing things into the future. So we asked them, in terms of the future, how do you see technologies, and what kinds of things would you like to use them for in terms of priorities. The green bars on the right-hand side represent a shift, an upward shift in terms of priority. And what we saw there were these stakeholders who responded to us, seeing safety, urban traffic management, integrating modes, and moving down a little bit, encouraging mode switch, and environmental concerns, both local environment and global environment, all as being increasing priorities in terms of the way that they would like to use ICT, digital technologies, intelligent transport systems. And so the environmental concerns and the sustainability aspect is actually, if these answers are truthful, is actually very important to politicians, decision makers going forward. Some of the losers, which actually were the bars in red, include things like the use of digital technologies for monitoring, providing monitoring data. That's actually very important to us at the moment, and we use it a lot. Maybe the issue here is it's relatively a lower priority. And also some of the other things that we're perhaps slightly surprised with, including the use of technologies to support economic growth. At the time, this was not seen as being a future priority. Maybe the hope is that everything will be sorted out by the time we get into the next 20 years. So that's the first thing. We need to be mindful of political priority. The second mega trend, I think, is something to do with opening, sharing and fusion. Because of the way that technologies have emerged, we have a pattern now of technology out on the highways and within the infrastructure where we've got these different layers of established technologies, the technologies that came afterwards, the ones that have come after them, and so on. And we've got these layering of different generations of technology. They are all providing data to us, and some very useful data. And they are all increasingly connected. But as I was working on this slide, I was very mindful of the question of how connected are these technologies in practice. So we started off with the traffic control room, which has been around for many years. It takes in a lot of data. The controller has access to visual data through CCTV cameras and so on, and also all other kinds of data that they can process. Following on from that was the opportunity to use that data to direct traffic that was out in the system through variable message signs, etc. And for us to actually monitor responses, which can be speeds, it can be bottlenecks, all sorts of things. So we started to get some two-way flow of data. From that, we moved on to the idea of everything being connected, the Internet of Things, and that traffic data became part of a huge cycle of data that was flowing around between vehicles and various other sites and buildings and sensors. The next stage from that was the idea of personal mobility monitoring and the person sensor. That's what we all are now. We're all people sensors within the system, and the technologies that we carry around with us are picking up data with permission. They are providing the opportunity to build up mobility profiles where we know where people started, the origin of their journey and the destination, and for us to mass that data together and to pick out new kinds of trends and more accurate data. The issue with this is, at the same time, we've also got technology convergence happening. Now, if I were to ask how many people in the room have got more than one device with them today, I suspect it's probably quite a lot. I won't do a hands up. But it's probably quite a lot, and we have one or two different devices. Maybe a couple of years ago we would have had 3 or 4 devices with us. In future we may only have one device, but as the different functionalities are coming together, this is providing a great challenge in terms of the power source for these devices. It's not that each functionality in itself is draining the power and shortening the the lifetime, and therefore inhibiting the full potential of the devices in terms of collecting and disseminating information. That's not the issue. It's the fact that there may be 4 or 5 or 6 or 20 things running and functionalities within this single device. And as users use their device for more and more different kinds of functions, we run up against this battery problem. This is something within the EU Sunset project, which is social networking for sustainable transport. We hadn't really envisaged when we started that project out a couple of years ago how much of an issue this would be, because we've created a fantastic app, and it monitors people's transport behaviour, it interacts with them, allows them to do social networking, it offers incentives to them and rewards their behaviour and so on. But if this is running alongside various other things that people want to use their mobile phone for, the usefulness of the whole package is seriously constrained. People will not use power-hungry functions within their personal devices, because ultimately it will come down to the basic functionality of I need to make a call. So this is an area that we need to look at. And then we moved on, of course, through that and via that onto social networking, Facebook and so on. So now we're analysing text-based data, and we're picking up qualitative data and people's opinions and views through this kind of medium as well. And we've been doing some text mining, and this actually has proven itself to be a very useful source of additional information. There are concerns about data quality within the whole cycle, within the whole set of these technologies, but particularly within some of the social media data that's coming through. And this is a big challenge for us to go forward. We need to understand how these different data sources can be opened up, under what conditions, how the different actors within this cycle can have a value proposition out of opening up their data. So what I get out of opening up my data, and what commercial third parties may get out of having access to my data, but also agreeing to work within ethical guidelines and so on, and how commercial operators can work together. So it leads back to this issue of the business model that we've already talked about several times today. But these are things that we need to work on, and we need to be able to turn this data into what we would call actionable data, which is data which is fit for the purposes that we need to use it for. It has to be data that is provided in a timely fashion. It has to be data which is of sufficient rigour and quality, which is not actually always top-level rigour. Precision and recall in social media, it actually doesn't matter if we're picking up and we're interested in occurrences rather than flows. Okay, so it has to be rigorous, and it has to be governed in a way that's socially acceptable. So in terms of people engaging with the decision-making process, I think that this has started to happen already. And in fact, if we look back, if we reflect, people have always had the opportunity to participate in decisions about transport. It's just that actually it was done in a very sort of permissive way, and it happened in the kind of timeline which was not conducive to moving along quickly with some of the transport initiatives that we needed to be able to develop. So public consultations that were in-person consultations through arranged meetings where there were selected audiences, or maybe only a subset of the population would be willing and motivated to join those or able to join them, were well and good, but were not as good as we can get in future. And I became very mindful of this issue through doing some work with transport in Beijing City, where of course everything is far bigger and far worse and far more at the extremes than it is for us. But around 2 weeks ago, the Beijing authorities announced a new clean air initiative that they're going to introduce. They're going to have a particular area that they're going to target for this. They're going to be a cooperation between transport and other sectors to work to deliver this. And I was particularly interested in the transport part of it, of course, being working in transport. They had many initiatives within this that we would find interesting, but the bottom one out of the list, and the one on which they did not put a date, was road pricing. That was very, very interesting, because in the 2 weeks since they announced this, there have been something like 2 million messages on a particular social networking site in opposition to road pricing, and very strongly worded messages of opposition. And I was talking to my Chinese colleagues about this. The fact is that would not have happened some years ago. And if there was an opening up to public consultation, it would have been done in quite a careful way, and people would have been quite measured in the kinds of views that they put forward. But the fact is that the participation of citizens in the kinds of choices that are made about transport is happening without necessarily the permission and without the proactive steps taken by the authorities themselves. And this means that when we look at transport solutions and technology solutions, we will need to factor this in, which is where I predict that we're going to need technology plus package. So technology plus things like maybe incentives, rewards, maybe tradable credits, maybe road pricing, maybe lots of different, improved PT of course, lots of different things packaged together which will help us to come up with something which satisfies the needs of users alongside satisfying the objectives of the high-level decision makers. So in terms of user-led or user-centred mobility, I won't go through this in detail because this has actually now been around for a couple of years. I predict that we will be somewhere between the system-focused transport infrastructure, which is the traditional paradigm we've been working with, where it was actually all about, or largely about, optimising system objectives, and with the people-centred mobility, which is a little bit more about tailoring initiatives towards what people actually want. So within this you can see some of the things I've mentioned already, that travellers act as sensors, we act as suppliers because we supply information. We might also supply modes of transport if we're willing to share our car, etc. Maybe the key point, the key difference between the two is 4 lines up from the bottom, which says for people-centred mobility, it's about enabling people to make choices, supporting good travel decisions by ourselves. Whereas within the traditional paradigm, it was all about the provision of good transport options. It was what transport options can we, as suppliers, local authorities, government, what are the good options that we can provide for people? And that's really the fundamental shift between the two. I don't believe in future that we will be entirely in a user-led or user-centred paradigm, because I think that there are practical constraints on that, which within my lifetime I can't imagine that they will be overcome. But we will shift from the right-hand side into the left-hand side as we go forward. Okay, socio-demographics and intelligent modes. Within this, of course, I do believe that ageing is a significant mega trend going forward. There are at least 2 possibilities that I can see for this. The first is that we will have an increasing size of population that may not have the level of physical mobility to be able to engage with particular kinds of modes, but who may actually be sort of intellectually still very much bang on target, who may actually be very familiar with ICT, because some of the senior citizens are actually now getting in on the act and are becoming very much aware, learning how to use it and to maximise their objectives. So that's one possibility. The other possibility is that we may have still some very active citizens as we all get older, improvements in healthcare and so on, but who may not be as familiar with the technology. And somehow we need to be providing solutions that cater for people at different layers within the system. So this is actually showing a very simple approach that we need to be providing solutions which are simple, where people have choices, where transport sits within their lifestyle, and where the HMI with the technology is such that it enables the maximum value from the solutions. Okay, very briefly, because I'm running out of time now, energy accounting and green ICT. The ICT, EU-funded ICT programmes have got a good handle on this, that we understand that ICT is not actually for free, and maybe we're working on the presumption that all this technology comes from somewhere. Somebody's paying for the carbon cost, somebody's actually paying for the supply of it. So if I plug in my mobile phone, which I did do, take a bit of energy, I don't know who supplied that and who I owe any funds for. But we need more research to understand the energy costs of providing all these solutions. And finally, some research and policy challenges. So we need to involve different kinds of expertise, particularly in terms of ethics and law, in order to make the way forward with this. We need the cross-sectoral approach, which is transport within and alongside other sectors. We need to develop further, although good starts have been made, evaluation methodology, because when we introduce these schemes, we are not yet fully aware of what the true costs and benefits are, and the traditional valuation paradigms don't yet cater for these, particularly with mobile technologies, where the impacts are very dispersed. There are various areas there where I believe we need some more research, and as an academic I'm always pushing for more research. But finally we need revisions of culture and practice relating to employment and consumption, which I think probably reflects one of the comments that we were looking at this morning. So there are a few references there, if anybody would like to a little bit more detail about what I've said today, or to know something about where I've found some of the information from. Thank you.